Howdy artists, Miss Stone here to give you tips and tricks on how to create your own surrealism. Surrealism, you know, the type of artwork that has realistic things doing unrealistic stuff, such as melting clocks, bubbles floating out of a portal made out of a rope, or anything else crazy that you can think of. I'll show you how I created my artwork step by step and give you tips and tricks on how to create your own surrealism. Are you ready? Let's make it trippy. As artists, when we create art, it says something about us. Whether it's our thoughts, emotions, and feelings, or it's just something that we want to tell the world. I used to live in Okinawa, Japan for 4 years, and I miss it every single day. I notice in my artwork that I often have something to do with the ocean or water because I enjoyed living by it, swimming in it, and just smelling the wonderful sea air. In one of my pieces of artwork that I created a while back, I had myself trying to pull the entire island of Okinawa with me. Now, bear in mind, Okinawa is more than one island. However, let's say the main one. And I wanted to tug, 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 and take it wherever I was. When I was working on this surrealism piece, I didn't even notice. It's the same girl in the same outfit. How did that happen? I don't know. But I do know that maybe this fantastic rope here is my lasso, and I can lasso new portals that let me travel to Okinawa and back. Now, what's the reason for that weird rope? If you notice, the rope is in this artwork as well as this one. Well, this rope represents the tug of war. Okinawa is known for having the largest tug of war in the world, and I got to be a part of it. So I wanted to use that very same rope to help me travel to all the different places. Another correlation that I found were these fly fish. What? Fly fish? Who paints those? I do. Why? Because hey, it's a fish that can fly. That's pretty cool. Well, I wanted to make sure all of this came into my artwork, and it's okay for me to add everything. I even placed little itty bitty images inside the bubbles that are coming out of this portal. So you can see that there are clouds, there's an ocean here, and underwater coral, jellyfish, and everything else. And these images, where are they from? They're from Okinawa. So I can always have Okinawa with me. Your artwork should have some sort of connection to you. It should represent you or how you feel. Now, when you're drawing your surrealism, you may have a plethora of ideas. Just idea. And you want to put them all on your artwork. That's okay. But when you're putting them on, you may notice, hey, I may want to subtract a few of these. Or, hey, I want to add this. It's okay to add and subtract as you work. Have you ever had trouble working on your background and not messing up all the objects that are in your foreground? Well, I have some tips and tricks for you. You can take your time and outline around the objects that you drew, so that way when you paint, you don't overlap the paint. If you really want to get technical with it, you can use painter's tape or masking tape, and you can put tape on top of your drawings cutting out all that excess. So that way, when you paint, you can cover that whole thing up and not worry about whether you're going to ruin your drawings. Now, even though you are painting, it doesn't mean that you can only use paintbrushes. You want to know something that's helpful? A toothbrush. Especially if you're trying to do stars in a night sky. You can put your toothbrush in your paint with a little bit of water and then go and splatter everything. Now, if there are some areas that you don't want to get splattered, cover them up real quick. And that way, you can have your stars exactly where you want them. When you're working on your artwork, you want to ask yourself this question. Do I plan on framing this? The answer typically is no. You're probably not going to have the time or even think about it. So if you're not going to frame your artwork, you probably should paint the sides. So that way, when you put this on the wall, it'll look good all the way around because it's painted everywhere. When it comes to painting, it's all about layers. You want to think about adding in all of that shading and the highlights and making sure your stuff looks as realistic as possible. The cool thing about surrealism is that it's real things. So if your stuff is looking flat like a cartoon, you're not going to give the effect that you want. When I'm working, I may work on an area 2 to 3 times. So it's nice to make sure that I have lots and lots of layers. Be in mind, when you're doing lots of layers, it looks great on your artwork. But if you're not taking your time, it can look lumpy. And you want your craftsmanship to be great. People commonly think that you can't erase paint. Once it's on there, it's over. Well, let me tell you something. if it hasn't dried yet, you have the ability to make it go away. You can use a wet towel and maybe a little bit of Murphy's oil, and you can swipe all of that paint away. Now be in mind, if you were working in layers and there was already a layer of something else, that top layer of paint just may blend in with the second. While I was working on my painting, I had 2 fly fish. One was at the bottom near me and the other one was in space. But maybe that was a no-fly zone for my artwork. So I decided to subtract him. Think about your artwork. Let it talk to you. It'll let you know when things don't seem to go right. And if you notice that, change it. And don't worry about what anybody else has to say, because you want to know who's in charge? You're the artist. Another way of erasing your paint is to go over it with white paint. You want to do this when the layer of paint is already dry. So that way when you add the white, it sits on it nice and smooth. When that layer of white paint is dry, you're able to paint whatever you want on top. Be in mind, when you're doing lots of layers, it looks great on your artwork. But if you're not taking your time, it can look lumpy. And you want your craftsmanship to be great. So think about it, take your time, and work smart. All right, artists, let's talk about space, balance, and unity. When it comes to you creating all of your objects in your foreground, you want to make sure that there is some sense of balance between your items and some type of unity, as if they seem like they go together. If there are things in your artwork that seem to be fighting, one of them needs to go. So let's say I placed all of my bubbles on this side and I only drew things on this side. It wouldn't be properly balanced. It would only have a left side that is heavy and a right side that's light. So you want to make sure when you're putting in all of your objects in the foreground, they work together and they're placed around evenly. So that way it has a nice harmony and happiness. Even if it's a bit scary, like an octopus pulling onto your hair. So when it comes to creating your surrealism, take your time. Make your things look real, make the feeling unreal, and you will create an artwork that is surreal. I believe in you. Bye.